How's it going, guys? And welcome to our first Q&A of 2017. Today we'll be joined with Mod Matt K.
Hi.
Mod Kieran.
Hello.
Mod Rock.
Hiya.
Mod Ash.
Hello.
And myself, Mod Archie. We kicked off the year with a kind of sizable update, I think. Raids has been pretty damn successful since release.
It's pretty big.
Yeah.
We always like to give you something big to start the year, whether it was Zora or Zaya or a huge double bill Slayer update back in 2014. We'd always like to give you something big.
How scared were you guys? Because we've obviously, it's something that we were...
My nerve levels went up and down, but I felt pretty scared more than any other update.
I mean, we could test it to an extent, of course, with the, I don't want to say beta, the load
I mean,
test.
for me, it was less so like bugs coming up, more so players liking it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I've put so many hours into making a boss. I really hope players like it. It's because it's a little bit disheartening if players don't like it, you know.
Yeah.
And it's so big, it's important that players
I've seen
enjoy
a
it.
lot of love for it, honestly.
For me, the most complicated bit of it was the grouping system. And the thing about that is that you guys tested it for us about a month ago. So we'd already ironed out the problems you found at the time, you know, with scroll bars not quite working if the menu got too big or not handling certain types of party very well. And since you kindly tested all that for us, I only needed to worry about the actual contents of the dungeons, which is a lot simpler than that grouping system. I'll give you that.
Right. Well, we have several raids questions here from the community. We're going to be gathering some more from the chat, so ask away. In the meantime, I think we're going to jump to wherever this is on my list. Let's cover this fixed boost thing that's happening right now in the chat.
So, previously, as I'm sure you know, the stat restore timer ran every minute, and if your stat was down, it would bring it up. If your stat was up, it would bring it down. In this update, we promised, and you voted for, a prayer that made stat boosts last 20% longer. Now, you can't really do that with just one timer running every minute. You can't. So we've had to make something that runs more often and decides whether it needs to do the stats coming down or the stats coming up. And we thought also if you'd got some stats that were drained and you'd got this prayer on, you wouldn't actually want a stat drain to last 20% longer on you as well, because that would be kind of harsh. So we had to have a timer that runs every 12 seconds and decides whether it's meant to do ups and downs and does whatever it needs to do. Unfortunately, since the timer is running more often, yeah, that means you can't just log out every 55 seconds to stop your stats ever draining back down again. I appreciate a lot of you found that really useful and really beneficial, because it means you could, you know, just get one stat booster and make it last all day by logging out every 55 seconds. But you will have to appreciate that is really not how a stat boost is meant to work. And I'm afraid we've removed that old exploit. I'm sorry if you were depending on it for the way you played, but perhaps if you train your stats some more, you will be able to get the stat you needed.
Especially those pures, yeah.
I mean, for me, the stat boosts are for one-off stuff, right? You need to meet an achievement diary requirement, you're a few levels off, you boost up, bang, you do it once, that's it. You get up to, when you boost, you're going to get up to a minute before they go down, depending on where you happen to be within that cycle. But yeah, I mean, that's what you need it for, right? You go and do an achievement diary requirement, you boost for it. I mean, if you're wanting to camp something for hours, you shouldn't be able to do that off just one bite of a pie or one dose of a potion. It seems a little OP to me to be able to do that. If you can do it for hours, you're just going to need a lot of pies.
So for people saying, please fix it so that logging out is a way of getting indefinite stat boosts, I'm sorry, that's not how logout is meant to work. But I am sorry that we changed it without you knowing up front, and we will try to avoid that happening again.
Hey, okay. That out of the way. Let's get into the raids questions. So, what is each JMod's personal favorite boss and reward? Matt?
Tecton, because he looks good.
Good choice.
The rewards, the bow, because you can kill stuff with it.
85s on Bandos, I
85s
hear,
on Bandos, yeah. That's, I'm going to do that constantly.
What's all
forever.
that about?
It can do nothing but 85s on Bandos, so I hear. Also, Reddit tells me anyway.
Yeah.
You know.
I heard from a friend.
For a friend, you can't hit less than 85 on Bandos, right, from what I understand.
My favourite is Olm because I coded it. So I'm biased slightly. My favourite reward, I think it's the Bulwark, because it's just I got no one's got that yet.
Yeah.
No one's got it yet.
The stuff we have to do with that.
It is damn unique,
Yeah.
and I'm really interested to see what people are going to do with it.
Alm's definitely given the most hassle by far
You're welcome.
out of anything we've ever done ever.
It was meant to, though. It's the final challenge. It should cause you. It should cause you some
For the
hassle.
bulwark as well, what we can do now, it's in game, is going to open up a whole load of new future bosses and future content that we can do with stuff, and we've now got a new mechanic in game because of that item.
What we're going to have to stop doing, though, is using ambient damage, the sort of damage you get from a rockfall or whatever, from a boss. Because as it currently stands, that's been done quite a lot. Bosses would just say, unblockable damage, it's a bit like rocks fall on your head from a cavern shaking or dead man fog. But since the bulwark does not protect you against that kind of thing, otherwise, you go stand in castle walls under a rockfall and just survive with the bulwark, or you stand in dead man mode, then we shouldn't be doing that anymore from the bosses because the bulwark should work against whatever it is there.
I think they just did it to make a hit through prayer sort of thing.
It was a simple way of doing it. I mean, there's a lot of places where a boss throws a bomb at you or something and there's an explosion and you take damage, and we've done it as ambient. In future, we may want to avoid that approach. Fortunately, we did a sort of change to the way prayer is handled inside the combat scripts, which will make it a lot easier to disregard prayer on future things.
Favorite boss, favorite item?
I think mine has to be the Doggodile. Well, the Matadile, sorry.
Right.
Doggodile was our code name for it. It's not necessarily that hard, but if you're not paying attention, I think someone today got hit for 100.
It wiped out like 40 people in one attack when when the first punch ran in there. So yeah, I do like that boss.
Jed was savage.
Yeah, no, definitely.
With those numbers, I think.
But no, it's by far my favourite.
Yeah.
For the items, I'm excited to see what happens with declaws. I know a lot of players wanted that for quite a while, and I definitely want to see some new PKing videos with things like that.
Yeah.
Yes, I think there was some interesting footage came out last night with things like that.
Oops.
Ash?
Didn't show the claws very clearly, though. My favourite boss in there would be Vasinisterio, because it looks awesome. It's an ancient, scary, undead mage merged with a boulder. How cool's that? I mean, Mod Ghost said he'd never again do a thing with that many legs after the Abyssal Sire, and this is pretty much up there. And it's got circling boulders. It's awesome. And and the mushroom cloud thing it does all the time. So yeah, I like that one. It looks great, and I got a bit overexcited writing its book that you can get if you killed it.
That's my favourite from like a graphical standpoint.
Yeah.
The
I
way
thought it was really
those
interesting.
rocks like spin around it, it looks awesome.
I asked Ash about the attack, the mushroom cloud thing. I think he said you reused it from Barbarian Assault,
That's
right?
right. It's Nick from Barbarian Assault and painted purple because apparently purple's our thing these days.
It's Dark Altar themed. It makes sense.
It
Okay.
Magic.
matches Vassar himself.
Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoyed writing his book.
Favorite item?
Oh, Dragon Throwing Axe.
Oh, that's mine too. Dragon Throne Axe. We were playing around with it, and it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun for pure PKing. The chat in the stream loves, of course, pures, so they'll be very excited to see Dragon Throne Axes.
Just don't do what Ian did on his video earlier. He had his spec ready for his first attack,
Right,
but if you throw the first attack and then spec, you'll get an extra one.
right. Don't do that. Favorite boss is probably Om, because
Yes, like 1 point.
it's been really fun watching people try to figure things out, and yeah, it's by far given the most difficulty. Has the launch gone as expected, and was there anything unexpected?
From the sound of it, it went better than expected, I think.
Well, it hasn't made the server fall over.
Yeah.
I was worried about that. Still am a bit. Yeah. But there's nearly 2,000 people on World 11 been playing with it. That's a good start. One thing that was a little unexpected was that turns out we'd had like 2-3 versions of the rewards blogs floating around at different times, and the announcements forum is not always easy to navigate. And unfortunately, the version of the Kodai wand we implemented was not the version from the blog. So that's going to have to be changed, I think, next week.
Right. Moving on.
Also, there was some confusion about the fishing requirements for the harpoon. So the in-game skill guide says that the dragon harpoon needs 75 to fish with, but it's actually meant to be 61, like the poll question said.
There's one of those in game already.
There is.
Yeah. What was it like watching people try and fail, obviously knowing the actual
A ton of
mechanics?
face palming, like, what he's doing? Just do what you're meant to do. For us, that's weird because obviously we've implemented it. We've all known the mechanics and the boss's design, so we go in there and we know what we're doing roughly. As much as the communication between our teams were not very good. But
We'd borrowed a lot of testers
Yeah.
from outside our team, and obviously they were not fully briefed on all the mechanics, which is partly intentional. We wanted to see how they'd handle it.
one of the mods in RS3 was supposedly screaming when we were playtesting the Great Elm, so disturbing his other workers.
He was certainly screaming during the laser crabs room. I'm sure those of you who've encountered the crabs will know why.
But no, it's so fun watching people try to take it on, trying to work out what's going on. I don't think anyone's quite got the Vassal Stereo special.
Not that I've seen.
I don't
no.
think so, actually. Yeah, no.
Yeah, like we all have
Tricky, that
rough
one.
ideas how you're meant to handle these mechanics. And some of them players are hitting on, some of them they're not quite. So.
Any unexpected kind of strategies coming in that you're thinking like, oh, that's a really good idea?
I've noticed that when through playtesting, I kind of got a good idea for what equipment and stuff is useful, obviously because we know a lot more. And I don't think I've seen anyone yet use some of the stuff that I was using, maybe because they don't know that yet or something like that. But it's definitely interesting to see the variety of weapons that people are trying and using.
Yep.
So far, since they seem to be mostly taking longer to complete a raid than you were doing, and also coming out with fewer points than you were coming out with, could be they're still learning.
I mean, looking back at something like Zulra, on release, people were taking so long. In fact, they weren't killing it on release, and then they were finally getting the kills down, and they were taking so long. And of course, now look at the kill times; they're ridiculous. So, who knows what the raid's kill times will be in a month from now?
It's the same with every piece of PVM content.
Yeah.
Like when all the wilderness bosses came out, were people taking them on as efficiently and as well as they can now? Not at all.
Do we have any interesting stats? How many players have died? Anything like that?
Ooh, I do.
You got data.
We prepared this and we had some tracking in game. And I've been tweeting it earlier actually about how many players have died in a raid. Guess. I want to see some numbers in the chat of how many deaths we've had. But we've got some other data as well. The number of completed raided dungeons. This data was accurate as of 1641. The number of completed raids was 400.
We made that a long time ago. It was about
Charles the First.
Yeah.
413 completed raid dungeons, which when you think how many people are going into each one and how long each one's taking, that's actually quite a lot of raid
That's
dungeons.
quite impressive.
And that's people individually, not parties.
That's parties.
Oh, that's parties. Okay,
Yeah,
so that's
yeah.
quite a few. Well, trying to imagine. I'm remembering that. What was the first party to do it was Hexus. How many people do they have?
9.
9 people.
Yeah, I think it was like 6 or 7 Hexis members and 2
Okay.
other people.
Sorry, go on.
So, number of deaths then. I can't believe how many deaths. But we're at 332,000. A third of 1,000,000 of you have died in raids. That's just insane. Obviously, one person can die twice, and people have. But that actually, if you divide that against the raids completions, you're looking at 804 deaths in raids versus per completion.
Wow.
Obviously, that includes
That's
deaths
quite a lot, yeah.
it includes deaths in dungeons that haven't been completed, but 333,000, third of 1,000,000.
I think one of the other interesting stats is that it somehow managed to take skill specs about 40 minutes to reach the dungeon. So, good job, Jay.
Yeah.
But I can't even comprehend like 333,000 people dying.
So Honor123, who's asking whether you lose your gear when you die, no, you don't. Although raid-specific items that you've picked up in the dungeon will fall in the dungeon where you died, but stuff you brought in with you, you keep.
Shall we go over which drops have been obtained?
Yeah.
Right. I have a list of them all. So the drops that at least one of are in game. Someone's got a harpoon, someone's got the twisted buckler, someone's got the elder maul. The Kadai 1 was actually the first drop anyone got, pretty early on actually. Someone's got a dragon short sword, we've had a dragon hunter crossbow, we've obviously had some thrown axes, and there has been at least one of the prayer scrolls in game.
Ooh.
Yeah, so it's exciting, isn't
It
it?
is
Because
exciting.
I have no idea which spray they chose.
I want to watch
I'm guessing
somebody
it'll
with
be
this
rigor.
stuff
I'm
needs
guessing
to
it'll be
stream
rigor.
this.
but-
I need to see this.
Missing. Now, there's still a lot of drops obviously not got. The twisted bow has not been gotten, and I believe that's probably one of the ones people are most looking forward to getting. No one's got the bulwark yet. No one's got a single piece of ancestral, the whole magic set, and obviously no declaws yet. So some of the exciting stuff is completely not even in the game yet.
Has anyone found that crack the clue thing?
Or the bulwark.
Oh, you're terrible.
Any
No, it's
more?
quite wonderful, isn't it? I mean, a lot of what we've seen, I think, when we were talking about it yesterday, what do we want to see Reddit saying when it comes out? And the one thing we wanted to see is Reddit saying it's too hard,
Forehead.
which is what we're seeing, which is great. And, you know, the answer is now, yes, it's too hard. 3 weeks' time when you've learnt it, it won't be too hard. Then it'll get easier and easier and easier, and more people will practice it and you'll get onto it. So, yeah, it will get easier.
One day somebody is going to be live streaming themselves doing it solo with flowers.
Yes, with flowers and in 25 minutes. But right now is not that time.
Right. Moving on. Any changes players can expect to see from raids in the near future?
Well, there's that thing with the Kodai wand. It was meant to be made by getting an enchantment from the dungeon and using it on your master wand to codify it or whatever. Oh, that's a word. Kodai it. And due to a slight miscommunication on our end, very sorry, we just gave you the wand. So we'll be changing that next week so that in future the dungeons will, I think, drop the enchantment. People who've already got the Kodai wand will keep the Kodai wand.
Ooh, congrats.
The rather than needing to, you know, turn it, add a mage wand, a master wand to be allowed to keep using it. I mean, they've sold the thing to people. We don't want to change what it is at this point. But there aren't likely to be all that many of the things knocking about, given how slowly they come into the game. So by changing raids next week to give the correct item, you'll get your master wand sync, and people who've already got an item they've paid for will keep it.
How much are master ones these days?
It's been going up and
5
down.
at the
Changed a
moment,
bit
I think.
lately.
5 mil.
Yeah.
It'll be more than that by 1 minute from now.
10 mil now.
Okay. Where are we here? Fish says, why aren't points given for fishing and cooking? Very common
Okay, so
question today.
the reason it looks like you're not getting points for fishing and cooking, same for potion making, is that you don't get the points straight away. The points are actually given if those food items and potions are actually used. So when you cook a food item or when you fish it,
Did
it's
you watch a food item?
cook it. Not funny, Matt.
Yeah, it is.
So when you fish it, it saves the idea of the player on the object. When you cook it, it saves the idea of that player on the object. And points are given to those relevant players when the food is actually eaten. And on top of that, it's only if the food is eaten and it was useful. You can't just sit and mass eat food or mass drink potions to get points because we're checking for that.
So if you want a
So,
lot
yeah.
of points, make all the food for everybody.
Yes.
They'll all eat it, and there you go.
Of course, the rest of the team is probably doing stuff that gets points as well. Fighting the boss. It also gets
So
points.
that
But
level
yeah,
3s who can't fight the boss can make a decent effort. So.
Yeah.
but yeah, you are getting points even if it doesn't look like you are straight away.
Okay.
I've had a few questions from people saying that you know they want to know about the XP rates so that they could go and train in a raiding dungeon. But we don't want you to go and train on a fishing spot in a raiding dungeon. If you're in there and you're fishing, it should be to feed your party. We'll give you a bit of fishing XP for your time and trouble, but it's not meant to compare to, you know, proper fishing training like the barbarian trout fishing. So no, we've tried to make it rewarding only if what you're doing actually benefits your party, so that you don't just go in there and solo by yourself in the corner while everyone else does all the work of going through the dungeon.
Right. On the topic of points, how many points are required per team / per player to receive a decent reward in the end?
Well, do you want to go on? You did the drop table.
Yeah, I'd be less inclined to release an amount, but more about the way it works. So what happens is you go through, your team will get a whole bunch of points and you'll get a bunch of points. And then based on how many you have, you are assigned 2 items from the drop table. which will equal a given value based on the points. So basically, the more you have, the better it is.
But yeah, there isn't a set amount where it just becomes good. It's like the two different types of items you get are chosen regardless of your points, excluding the uniques for a second. And then the quantity of those that you get is based on your points.
So there was a player asking, as an iron person, how do they benefit their team? Good question. Well, you can still, if you are an iron player, you can fish, you can cook, you can catch bats, and you can cook what you've caught and drop it on the floor for people to use, and you will get points from them consuming it. Or you can eat it yourself, and you'll get points for having helped the party that way. Or you could fight monsters. You will get points for doing that, and the points also count to your team. So the only restrictions are the ones that you're already accustomed to as an iron person, like people can't give you stuff. But apart from that, you can totally go play.
All right, don't say if you don't want to give this out yet. In terms of unique drops, does it matter how many points you have, or does somebody who's suicided 100 times, lost all their points, versus somebody who's kept them all, who's going to have a higher chance?
If I was to answer this one.
You can go ahead.
At the end of the dungeon, the game decides whether or not a unique will be given, or maybe more than one. It will then decide which of the party to give it to, and it will do that by looking at how many points people have in the party. So if you've been leeching the whole way and you've done naff all, you've got 0 points, it won't be you. If you've got lots of points, more than anyone else, you've got a much higher chance. Could be anyone who's got points, but it will be skewed towards the people with more points in recognition of them having, worked more. So if you're the most valuable player, you're the one with the more points than anyone else, you've got a better chance than anyone else. If, on the other hand, it's never you because, you're, a level 3 skiller and maybe there's not that many points being given for all the fish you've been making, you'd still have a chance because you'll have some points, and it just won't be such a high chance as the people who've been maybe taking a bigger risk.
Okay, sounds good. Alpha says, can you change the new prayer colors to fit more in line with the other prayers? I spoke to Mod West about this, and he said he's already done so, and it will be in line, I believe, with next week's update.
Cool.
So he's changed the colors a little bit more accordingly to what players have been requesting, so there you go. The code I want thing we already covered. Chris says, could raids be redesigned to be more like dungeoneering, where you have different paths instead of one single long tunnel? Also, the door system where you would have to find keys to unlock them was also really good.
Sounds like he wants dungeoneering.
We wanted it
There's
to
a
be
game
more
with
like
that.
we wanted it to be more like a cave than an apartment complex.
Yeah, the original thing when we sat down with Dan many, many years ago was that it would feel like you're going through a set of caves past multiple bosses in order to get to this big thing at the bottom. That's what we delivered, that's what we pitched, that's what we did. Dungeoneering is about as far from dungeoneering as you can really get, isn't it?
Well, randomly generating a cave with monsters in, yeah. Pretty much.
I can see why they thought it was going to be similar to dungeoneering, like randomly generating dungeon,
Yes, obviously
puzzles and bosses and loot.
But the key thing doesn't really fit with it because, again, you're not going through a dungeon with doors in it. It is lots of caves being blocked off in multiple different ways.
I'm certain. If we ever do a different raiding dungeon, I'm not against having something more in that style. Every raid dungeon, if we do more raids in the future, it's likely each one will have a different, unique feel to it.
I should expect so. We talked about using a very similar design when sailing was being polled, and the idea that you'd be exploring a map that it may not look like it, but the sea would have been like one of these randomly generated dungeons, even if it was all blue with no doors.
Well, we could do something with Menafos and have kind of like a pyramid shape raiding dungeon where you fight your way to the top with the boss at the top, things like that.
Anything.
Yeah, any of the areas.
That's the thing.
Any of the areas we haven't used yet.
Thematically fit.
As for having multiple paths and potentially wrong turns, as this was not about trying to find a key and get all the way back. Frankly, even if you do have to go all the way to the cul-de-sac and back again, you haven't really had much of a labyrinth because there's only been one way to solve it. So that wouldn't really have added much other than potentially frustration from you going into a room that you didn't need to be in. We could, of course, add such rooms, but I don't feel we'd be gaining a huge
We
amount.
didn't want the challenge to be about solving a maze or organising how you're going to transport keys from one place to another. We wanted it to be about bosses and challenges.
And getting to the Olm.
Right. I've got a couple of questions here that I grabbed last minute in game from a party that just completed a raid, or tried to, I should say. They said the leader 6 hour logged and it kicked everybody out of the raid. Can this be changed so that another leader is picked automatically and people can stay in?
It will already look for another person in the party with the rank to be the leader. However, if you've only got one person in your party who's got the rank to lead, then it won't be able to find one. Remember, the rank to lead a party is whatever that channel has set as their kick rank, because the leader's got to be able to kick. So just make sure there's more than one of you, and then when the leader logs out for whatever reason, bathroom break if you will, the next person will be found automatically and will be made leader, and the party will continue. And when the original leader logs back in again, hopefully they'll still be in the channel, so they'll reconnect into their dungeon.
Okay,
However, it does require you to have a backup leader available.
that's good to know. The second question was, can you add a supply chest that players can use to store supplies in? They're getting tired of dropping a lot of supplies at a boss or something and then running all the way back, gathering more, etc.
How would the chest be any different to the floor in that regard? I mean, it would store things without them disappearing from too many items in one spot, but it wouldn't save them the walking.
Suppose you can have multiple chests, and you could put it into any chest, and it appears in all of the chests. Maybe one that spawns after
That's
each
what I was
boss is
thinking.
killed.
Ah, raid bank.
Yeah, a raid bank would
Shared?
make sense. Yeah, it'd have to be shared, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's
Community, or sorry, the chat, I
Something
should
gets
say,
difficult.
really likes that
well,
idea.
what's not to like?
Yeah.
We'd honestly find a pack yak easier, I think.
There's no reason why. Again, you couldn't start at the very beginning, have an NPC that follows you around, waits until the boss is dead, and then walks through, and you can just dump your stuff onto him. And he carries
The
it
other
along.
thing, obviously, is with a chest, you can deposit all or deposit very quickly, and dropping is a bit slow.
What we would have a difficulty with is that since it can't be stored on the instance, it would have to be stored on a player. And if that player decides to log out or whatever, then we'd have to either be darn sure we could get the items and put them on someone else. Might be possible if it's a leader. Might be. Or we'd have a bigger problem there.
Or we get controller inventories.
Given what happened when RS3 had that added to their engine, I'm not sure we want
What did happen?
all the,
didn't know it- I
all
didn't
the
know they had
untradeable items ever, I think, became tradable via it.
Oh,
It didn't know whose they were anymore, so it gave them out willy-nilly.
oops.
I may be slightly wrong about that, but I think that's what they got. It was for their gravestones.
But if it was for per player and everyone had their own chest in the raid, and it would still probably be convenient as a feature to have. I mean, it's a lot of storage, but I don't think you get that much out of it, other than saving your inventory space.
It wouldn't be
Here
taking
and
things
there.
out.
Yeah.
One in the chat that just came up that kind of falls in line with the next question, asking, did any mods actually complete a raid? And how many points did you have as the highest?
We completed a lot of raids. We had to, because if we hadn't completed any, we couldn't really put out a final product.
Somebody tweeted saying, if the JMods can beat it, it isn't difficult enough, redo it.
We actually did.
Funny you should say that. The way we were looking at it is, obviously, with the old school team, there's only 2 of us in QA. So we had to get outside help in terms of people from other teams that may not necessarily be as have as much knowledge of old school as we do. But yeah, we basically ended up saying if we could take QA from the RS3 team through dungeons, then we'll take that, and then we'll make it harder.
And highest points, do we want to say what our highest points was?
We got some decent raids.
You got in the six figures, all right.
Yeah, no, I think we also did get a couple of uniques too.
And
did.
obviously, a lot of the raids we did were at times when it hadn't been balanced yet. Every raid we did, we were tweaking little things here and there. This boss was a little bit too easy, and we'll knock this up a notch, and change little mechanics here and there that we didn't feel were working. Like the, I'm sure you've all seen the bomb mechanic Alm has, where it puts something on the ground, it explodes later. That was actually put in last night because we had a different mechanic in there, and in a playtest, we realised this isn't really doing what we want. It's a bit, you couldn't really do much to avoid the damage, so we changed it. And these little things tweaked here and there every single time we did a playtest. But
Yeah, there's
I'm pretty happy with what we've got in terms of difficulty. But yeah, we did manage to complete it. But one thing we actually did earlier was just blanketly before the stats of everything because of that reason that if
You're better at fighting than we are, so we went for about the hardest we thought it should be, and then buffed it for you.
Well, oddly enough, on the first playtest we had with a lot of the RS3 team, the main feedback we got is that it was too hard. So, okay, we turned it down. We then did another playtest, and not necessarily all those testers were available. And we ended up using some of the old school team to be able to play through it. And then we went, oh, it's too easy. So it's just a case of that we had to do so many playtests in order to get it right.
believe us when we say we've suffered the same thing from Ulm, though. Like we went in there fully gimped. We prepared for a solid half an hour making potions and food, and all up to the T, max stats and everything. And we started the fights going pretty well, and it had a lot more help when we were doing this, which is why it was such a big issue. But we all ran out of supplies and started dying, and it turned into a death spiral where we lost all our points, and it was just ended up grinding it until we got it down with no points left to get rewards with. So yeah, we've suffered that too.
And then there's the crabs.
Mm. Yes, those crabs made many people say many choice words until people realised what they actually had to do.
I don't doubt in a matter of weeks, months, people will be completing it without too much trouble.
I wouldn't say too long. Bodhi's team got through the crabs pretty quickly.
Once you know what you're doing, if you're well organised, then yeah, you can.
That's it. Well, if you ever think you want to go in there with a group of people that don't know how to do it and want to blitz through it and get the best rewards, that ain't going to happen ever. So you're going to have to be organised, you're going to have to know what you're doing, and you're going to have to work together.
Communication is very, very important, definitely. Next question then. Quentin says, will the drop tables be improved? 10k loot's not worth my time.
Well, that's because you're not getting enough points.
I told him, I said, did you try doing it without dying?
Too much. But, I mean, we were not going to make any knee-jerk reactions to the drop table. I mean, it might turn out, it's true, it's not good enough in a few weeks' time, but we ain't going to change it now before we've actually got some solid feedback on players who have learned how to do the raids efficiently.
People are going to the end,
probably
dying 100 times, finishing with like 200 points, getting nothing, and then complaining.
It's not essentially like a normal boss where it doesn't matter how you kill it, you get the same loot. I mean, your points matter when you get loot for this.
Yes, that's a good point. That's rather different to the normal way a boss would work.
Yeah. Good pointer.
What did we do for the dance games? I don't know. All right, next question. Silly says, poll letting Iron Man obtain raid-specific items from raids, and can points be adjusted / add more herb patches?
On Iron Man, frankly, I think we're already being a little generous to let them go in.
So the follow-up to that question, which has also been asked many times, is make it easier for Iron Man.
Like,
it's very difficult.
We're already letting them go in a group content and get help from other players. I mean, I know Brooks tried it solo earlier for raids, and it's hard. I mean, but an Iron Man could theoretically go in and manage to defeat a raid and get loot. There's nothing stopping them doing that, but we let them go into a group one because you have to get your own points to get rewards. You have to contribute. But going to the extent of also letting them fully contribute, I mean, it feels a little bit too far, and that's taking away from surely what Iron Man is meant to be.
If we pulled that, do you think it would pass? Letting Iron Man play it as a normal player?
I don't think so.
More importantly, a valid question here in the chat saying, if one guy has 90 Hunter and nobody else has 90 Hunter, nobody can get food except for that guy.
Put it this way, if there's somebody in your party who can get the top tier food, we supply the top tier food for them to get for you, and they are then able to supply the party as the chef. If on the other hand we said, there's only one of you can get the top tier stuff, so we're only going to give you mediocre food and you'll have a pretty big disadvantage for the entire raid, that would really skew how you get on, because you would have, mediocre food, even though your party would have been capable of getting something better.
The question is more like, could we put a mid-tier fishing spot as well as a highest
What we
tier
can
fishing
do
spot?
is, for a fishing spot, is that anybody fish it who likes, and they will get the tier food off their level.
Right.
Harder with bats, because the bat can't decide what species it's going to be just as you're catching it, because that would be a little odd. But for fishing, we can change the spot so that anyone can fish all the time.
Okay.
If they've
That
got
sounds
level
nice to
1.
me, I don't know.
I've just decided my favourite feature of all the raids is that snake. It is so good.
Yeah, that snake, we designed it and then looked at it and went, how can we make it more evil? And yeah, for those of you that have found out, you don't want to be fishing where the snake is if you've got more fish on you.
It's hilarious. Like,
Well, we did at least fix it so it only took 1.
Yes.
At one point, the snake would take all your food, and that didn't just apply to food from inside raids. It would, it would look for anything it recognises as food, like anglerfish or satchel from the Tower of Life. It would eat it. Hey, they're classed as food because you could put your banana and your sandwich in it.
Okay, fair enough.
I was like, that's the safe room. But no, you're in the chambers of Xeric. Even the food room is not safe.
The bats are all right. The bats don't do much.
Ventorian says, can we get like a sack to put secondaries, etc. in? It's really annoying having to run back for everything.
I think the previous thing we discussed will probably cover that as well as the food.
Yeah.
The other thing in line with that is like a toolkit that you have your rake, spade, and
can't say
everything in
the
one
T word.
slot. I didn't say tool belt. I'm not saying tool belt.
That's very close.
I'm saying an inventory item that you carry and it has all the
Evolution of
tools
tool
in
belts.
it.
All right.
But I think, the shed or chest.
shed.
Well, if it's going to be next to the
Storage
farming
unit.
patch, maybe a shed's appropriate.
Baba Yaga's house shrunk down, so it's like a walking tool shed.
Well, go into Xeric's raids and you'll find Xeric's shed.
Yes. Or the chambers of Xeric's brother Eric, the chambers of Eric, with which is where you store stuff.
All right, next question. David says, will there be more raids in the future? If so, will they also have unique potions and such, or will the current ones be reused?
Well, that's something we can decide when we decide whether we're going to do more raids. I mean, this has been very successful so far. I expect it to continue being successful, and if it is, then I'm sure we'll do other raids, whether expanding this one, whether doing it in new places at some point in future years, in which case we can go, do we want to use existing ones? I would imagine that if we're not going to do one on Zaya, then we probably want to make new stuff for it. So, but
Well, we wouldn't want Xeric's aid if you're not in Xeric's
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
chambers.
so some of the stuff will naturally
Yeah.
change.
I mean, I imagine the design and interior stuff of any other raid would be solely dependent on the design of that individual dungeon. So we'll see.
One thing we were talking about earlier was filling up places like Menethos. One of the things that was going through my mind was Prifdynnis and that conversation we had about going inside the seed and having this weird geometric thing going on there. We could do a raid and some sort of weird geometric crystalline type thing. And
Be quite low poly as well.
yes, and then
Efficient
various
on the
stuff
FPS.
probably wouldn't fit too well in there. So yeah, that's all stuff we could do if we wanted to, or if you wanted us to.
But I think on the basis of this, I mean, I've really enjoyed working on this. I think we've put out a really good piece of content, and people seem to be really liking it.
Yeah.
And so, by all means, we probably would do a raided dungeon again at some point.
I'd like to see an expansion personally. I like this one too much. I'd say add like another couple bosses on.
That's totally what we can do. I mean, if a year goes by and people are a bit bored of it, but people still want to get the rewards, it's certainly something we can do. Add a few more bosses in there, add more variation.
Add more potions, maybe.
Yeah.
Things that use more skills, because it's not using all the skills at the moment. There's been a lot of parties saying that they assumed it would scale off your skill total. And to be honest, no, if it doesn't use a skill, it ignores the skill. It's certainly not looking at your fletching level, for example. There's nothing in there that uses that. So there's scope to add more skills to it. Construction.
Yeah. Maybe you construct the chest. Or the shed, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not even a terrible idea.
That's a legit idea.
Yeah.
It's meant to be a joke.
You cut the kindling, you then fletch the kindling with a knife and do something else.
Well, what you do is make big spikes. This is going to go on Reddit, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're going to make big spikes that come out
What
of the
have you
ground to
done?
keep the shed in place. The shed doesn't keep wandering off on its Baba Yaga feet.
You probably want the shed to follow you, though.
Well, maybe you don't.
Chat doesn't like
Yes,
our
yeah.
ideas. That's a shame. Where have we gone to here?
Undead
Roderick.
yak resurrected by necromancy.
I would like a necromancy themed room, to be honest. That would be cool.
Trebuchets, yes, we should make trebuchets. I've got a trebuchet at home. It's only a desktop one, it's about this big. And it could break windows if you point it in the wrong direction.
There's a good subreddit about trebuchets.
Trebuchets are great.
Next question. Yep.
Yep.
Roderick says, is unlocking the new prayers only supposed to be received through obtaining a clue scroll during raids? If so, is it tradable?
A clue
Or
scroll.
sorry, only possible to be received by a scroll obtained during raids, or is it tradable?
It's a tradable scroll. That is the only thing that can unlock those prayers, but it's tradable.
Right. So I think the question is more, do I have to do raids to get the new prayers?
No. You can purchase it for however much they will be going for.
Did I say clue scroll? Sorry.
You buy one, you select which prayer you want to unlock with it.
Then it goes away, and you have to get another one if you want the other two.
All right. Caleb says, what was your inspiration behind each boss? One for Mod Ghost, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mod Ghost designed a lot of those.
Yeah, I mean, I put together an original design 12 months ago for a whole load of potential bosses we could do with ideas, and he made them good. I don't remember what I came up with, but I've already changed them and made them look good.
The Olm, though. Didn't John pitch the Olm at about the time when there was a news story about an actual Olm hatching in Hungary?
So remember that? But it sounds like a good story, so yeah, why not?
That is our inspiration.
I know that certainly in the beginning when Mod Reach was with us and trying to do the initial designs for what became the raiding dungeons, he was very keen that the final boss would be so big it was like coming out of the walls, which is roughly what we've done.
With Alm, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if he came up with the word Olm, though.
No, I think
Not many of us
came
know
from
that
we were
word.
looking for creatures that live at the bottom of a cave, and Olm was one of those creatures.
Well, it's a real thing, although the ones in real life are a bit smaller than ours.
I think I remember there was.
Maybe they don't
did
breathe
grow
fire
quite
and
big
stuff.
as they got deeper and deeper underwater. So
Quite big as in, like...
quite big as in person size.
Okay.
Speaking of Alm, there's one thing I didn't mention on this list of things that people haven't got yet, and that's the pet. There is a pet, and we kept it a secret until it went out today when everyone found out it existed. But it's a little Alm pet, and it's amazing.
The Omelette.
Who came up with that name, by the way?
I think that was
That was
one
you.
of mine. Well, yeah.
Whether you should be proud of it, I don't know. But
Well, if you want to learn more about all things raids and the lore and all that, the BTS video has a fair share of that. Mod Ghost talks about his inspiration behind the bosses and all that, so you can go watch that. It's on the YouTube channel.
It must be quite disturbing, actually, some of the things he's come up with in there. I mean, he wrote down the stories, like a short paragraph, and I turned them into the rather more... the books with all the fancy words in, because I like fancy words. And he seemed quite happy with it, but the inspiration behind it is interesting.
I think this is one of my favourite pets.
Yeah.
It looks hilarious.
I haven't seen it yet.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. All right. Gino says, how easy is the raid system to be expanded to add more bosses? Kind of falls into the previous question. To add more random paths, etc. Have you made it?
Well,
Extremely.
thankfully, we have a great JMod over here called Mod Ash, and he made a system that it's so easy to add more rooms into. You just literally, you make the rooms, you make 3 variations of each rooms. So I don't know if you've noticed, but when you go through you get, say, the Tecton room, it either goes left, it goes straight on, or it goes right. And so you map 3 rooms, you make the boss fight, goes in there, and you just add the room to a few lists. And that's basically it. You code the individual boss fight and it slots into raids with very little effort.
With some generic scripts to let you just look at the coordinates on the thing you mapped that will just translate it to wherever it's going to turn up in the instanced area at an arbitrary orientation on an arbitrary floor. It just deals with all that for you so that what you're writing can be done relatively quickly.
It's quite amazing.
Thanks. Well, it's all arithmetic, really. Just rather a lot of arithmetic built on more arithmetic.
I know you didn't find that rotation arithmetic very fun.
Yeah, trying to identify the southwest tile of an arbitrarily sized and shaped piece of scenery that might be at any angle, in a room that might be at any angle, somewhere in a dungeon that might be at any position on any floor. There's a lot of arithmetic behind that one, But having written it, I never thought about it again for the last month and a half and just plugged it into things. So it really is just straightforward 2D geometry, mostly.
Yeah.
One we haven't actually answered yet in the YouTube chat, as we are streaming to YouTube, Twitch. So they know. Is how do I get there?
Well, firstly, the mountain, Mount Quidamorton, is situated to the southwest of the city of Corrend. If you go to the Shazian area, past the army barracks and the graveyard, and keep going southwest, you will eventually find the exit of the city, and you can head out into the desolate and abandoned reaches out there. There's, of course, ways of getting there quicker. Once you've been to Quidamorton, you can talk to the tracker to unlock him as a guide who will get you back and forth past the Lizardmen area, which is quite a big saving of time. But also, the Loverkenge dwarves, they need to support this new expedition that's gone out there too. So, Stuliet, don't blame me for the name. Okay, you can blame me for the name. Stuliet is up there waiting for someone to bring a control scroll from the chief of the minecart network. That's Miriam. She's by the Loverkenge Bank. You get a control scroll from her, hoover it up to Stuliet at the top of Quidamorton, and from that point on, you can just ride the Loverkenge minecart network to all the districts of Corrend, many of which are quite near banks. So that should help you quite a lot. And you can pay a one-off fee to have unlimited minecart access and never need to do that again. Never need to pay again, I mean.
All right, there you go. Here we are. Eric says, if the mods could add one thing to raids that was cut or they didn't get to add it, what would it be?
I would have said Dogodar, but we actually managed to include it because Jed kindly knocked that one out for us in a couple of days before Christmas.
There was a puzzle that was going to involve weights that I really liked the idea of.
Oh yes, how did that work again?
I can't remember. We had a rough idea that it was going to be essentially a pair of scales to balance, and it would take into account the different players' weights when you're standing on it, and any NPCs on it, or objects that you might have to pick up and put it on there to balance it. That was essentially the basis of the room, and we would have come up with a more detailed design, but I really liked that idea.
Thanks.
But yeah, we wanted to make more bosses more than puzzles, so.
For that matter, Laser Crabs itself, with the god-awful crabs and the ball of light bouncing around them, that originated because we were thinking, what puzzles are fun? Temple of Light. Yeah, Temple of Light. What happens if we try and write one of those in raids? And the truth is, we actually can't. But what we could do was set up a room with very simple physics, where this thing goes around the room, bounces to the right whenever it hits something. So if you can get things into position, it'll ricochet around those to get past obstacles. And hey, we could, thinking about Temple of Light, let's use that colour wheel thing, so you've got to try and get the right colour light ball to whatever. It would have been nice though if we could have done something more like the Temple of Light in there. But randomly generating one of those would have probably been beyond us.
We did have a room full of chests as well, didn't we?
It's got a room
Still
for the
do.
chest.
Is it still in there?
Oh, it's there, all
Oh, I
right.
was just not seen anyone do it.
Oh,
so-
someone's played raids.
Yeah, I must admit I haven't been through raids yet. I watched everybody else play it multiple times and not seen that room once.
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing, that we have enough variation that each raid you do, you miss a few of the bosses out, and the next one you might pick up one of the ones you haven't got yet, and it's nice. You don't just get the same experience every time.
Remco asks in the chat if there's going to be a teleport straight to the raids area. I expect there'll be one eventually, although I'd like to make you earn it. Rather than just saying, yeah, everyone can go straight to this deserted mountain that's at the back of Beyond just by clicking something. I'd like you to earn it.
What about if we were to add another reward which you put in your Xeric amulet?
Yeah,
Like-
that kind of way of
Like
earning
an
it.
enchanted fang or whatever.
Yes. Earned that kind of way.
Yeah.
All right. As for adding something, the only thing I could think of would be something to make it a bit more competitive throughout the teams playing it. So maybe showing like you completed the raid in an hour and a half. On the leaderboards, you stand, I don't know, in the top 20% of raid teams that can beat it.
Nice if we had that data.
Yeah.
One of the things, again, when in the original design I put together was that the rewards would help you complete raids more quickly, which so you'd get a weapon which was more effective against one of the raid bosses, and that sort of thing, which has been quite nice to see if that would have
Yeah,
There's no doubt that some of the rewards will still be the best to take in, to be honest.
Yeah.
that's
There are
actually
some
an
that are
interesting
effective
idea.
in certain places.
So it drops like, I don't know, something that helps you chop the trees in there faster.
I think that's where the bulwark idea came from. 'Cause I think one of the items, again, this is something that was done 12 months ago. One of the items was a two-handed shield to defend against one of the bosses that you could use to lower the thing. I think that's where the bulwark sort of originated from.
Well, it certainly is a two-handed shield that you can use to do something.
But it would have ended up being this outfit you wore, which you would take to raids with you, because every single item negated an effect of one of the bosses and made it quicker to kill the bosses. But
That is a common.
What I was
addition in
thinking
other
was
raids.
if you could generate the same dungeon for 2 teams and race,
Which we can.
that would be interesting.
The thing's random, but by overriding the seeding of the randomness, we can generate 2 identical ones. We'd probably want to do it on a locked world with invitation only, of course, but we've got those.
But if 2 teams could race for a raid and complete it as fast as possible, I think that would be fun.
raid
we-
races.
Yeah.
We've got about a little under 10 minutes left
Oh, wow.
and like 100 questions, so we'll save some for next week. That's fine, but we'll get through a few left. So, when will you reveal the drop rates for raids?
A few weeks yet, at least.
Not for
I
a
imagine
while.
a little while. These items are going to take up probably a fair while to start coming in until people have started doing raids efficiently. So we'll be holding it off until there's at least quite a number in
I mean,
game.
people don't know the value of what they should price the value of some things.
Yeah, we
at
can't
once they learn
tell you the drop
rate.
rate,
Yeah.
the drop rate for that reason.
The Lost Boy says, during the community stream yesterday, the Twisted Bow hit an 85 on Bandos. Did it? I didn't see that. Will it be getting changed?
We won't, again, we're not going to jump and nerf something based on that stream alone, and we'll wait and see, basically.
I mean, he was
Wait and
using
see.
the new
He was
Predator,
in
absolute max.
complete void and max and everything, and he wasn't actually sat there tanking anything.
Maybe a more valid question then is, it was working on Bandos. People don't expect Bandos to be a magic-based NPC.
He's not. The thing is, an NPC's magic defense works off their magic stat, and the Twisted Bow can see their magic stat even if they don't normally use it for spellcasting. So, quite a lot of creatures that are prepared to be attacked by magic will have a magic level just so they're defended against it.
Right, okay. There you go.
But yeah, we'll see what happens later at a later date. Also, this is coming from raids. It's not going to be a cheap item compared to what else you might use.
We'll grab a couple from the chat, I think. So, Can't Solo says, will hardcore Iron Men lose their status if they die in the raid?
Nope.
There you go. Can we get a timer in-game for our raid? There is one.
We tell you your time at the end of the raid. We can have it sitting there in the corner of your screen ticking, I guess. Won't do your frame rate any favours, but we can have it.
One thing we can't do with it is display it on a web page at the moment, because we're not in the right direction. We can make it so you have the longest raid at the top and then go down, but we
Yeah.
can't do it the other way around, which is the way it should be, because our high scores don't handle numbers going down.
Although looking at people who've tweeted saying they've done a 4-hour raid or something and it took them that long to get the Olm down, I do like to, feel sorry for them.
A question there about the scaling, saying that the Ice Demon seems almost impossible for larger groups.
Perhaps.
I think you'd probably have to then have a look at the way that you're doing it and perhaps think about the various methods of being able to
Right.
do what you're supposed to
Certainly
do.
the last player who contacted me saying that they were doing, the tactic they were using sounded to me like a good one, but they also mentioned, we don't have very good fire-making levels, though. That's probably not going to help you.
Interesting, all right.
That said, we can always look at the numbers and make sure they're appropriate.
With a lot of this stuff, we preferred to, if we made it too hard and you genuinely couldn't do it, we can solve that. Whereas if we made it too easy and you decided, no, that's how it's meant to be, there'd be a lot more whinging if we then decided to do something about it.
One I actually had earlier. So the rewards you get at the end and not after every single demi-boss encounter. Why was that the decision there? We want to make sure we didn't clutter their inventory with rewards.
With
throughout
rewards,
the entire raid.
one of the other things players would have been able to do is start a dungeon. Wait, do I see the boss that drops the loot I want? Yes, I'm going to go in and do the first room, and that's it, and then leave. Hey, we don't want that. We want people that actually have to complete the raid.
Though there is Tecton with his Onyx. It's not guaranteed, but Tecton drops Onyx occasionally.
There's one on Reddit. Forehead. Somebody said, can I solo raids?
Nothing's stopping you.
You tell us. I mean, you're welcome to try. We're not going to try and stop you, but we've not guaranteed it's possible, and
I never saw.
I'll be very, very
didn't
respectful to you if you can do it.
Luke's made it pretty far.
You know,
We haven't stuck mechanics in there that just one hit you if you haven't got a partner, for example. Like, if you can't do it, it's because it's just too hard, more so. Some mechanics you'll probably benefit from having more players, but yeah.
Somebody will do it at
he
some
did do
point
it.
in the future.
no, he got to Olm, and then
He could have done it. I mean, there's
yeah,
nothing-
he could have taken the time
doing
to
it
do
with reasonable points at the end to get a reward is going to be harder.
Right.
But yeah, I think he realised what was ahead and needed to. Well, not necessarily needed to, but he went and joined.
Boaties?
Yeah, he went and joined Boaty's team to, I think, probably learn some more of the mechanics.
Boss logs for the raids bosses to track kill count. Good idea.
We can count how many times you've been in a party that defeated that boss. Tracking whether you were relevant to it would be a little harder for us, and again, this being raids, you might have been the team chef, so you would have contributed indirectly. If people don't mind it being a log that counts how many times you've been in a party that did it, whether or not you were participating, then that we can have.
Okay. I really like the idea of like a raid-specific reward as in gear, not necessarily to make the raid easier for you, but more to show the rest of the community how many times you've killed the bosses or how skilled you are at raids. What do you guys think?
So like more of a cosmetic item
Yeah.
that like represents how good you've done.
Housing items as well.
As a pet. But yeah.
There you go. I mean, it is
Maybe
what
like a chompy hat type sort of thing.
what's the
Weighted
percentage
raids
of our
that
player base
people
that
get.
can complete raids? Do we know?
Sorry?
The percentage of our player base that can complete raids.
Rather hard to say, given that they could be in a party that can complete raids, even if they wouldn't have been able to do it if everyone in the party had their stats.
Yeah.
There's essentially no requirements on it.
Yeah, in theory, anyone can complete raids. Whether they are able to, with the skills they've got and the group they're in and the organisation they have, is another question entirely.
A level 3 skiller can go and participate in
I'm
raids.
saying 1%.
Well, a level 3 skiller can participate in raids. We made a point of not giving combat XP for, the end of the dungeon or something, or for the death of a boss. So unless they actually go and start attacking creatures, they should be safe. Although, if you do get the Dark Relic reward, and you're a level 3 skiller and you don't want combat XP, don't use the Dark Relic reward. It'll ask you first before giving you any XP, but it's not for you. But they can participate, so, and they don't necessarily have to be any good as a chef either, or a fisher, or a hunter. If the team doesn't mind them being naff all use, they can sit there the whole way through.
Could use level 3 to pack yak.
Yeah, they could be the porter.
There's a bunch of people asking what happened to tick manipulation. I assume they're talking about it while skilling in raids, because I believe you made fishing that you couldn't tick manipulate in raids.
We were trying something slightly different with the way the action delay works in there. It's not something that we were looking to expand to the rest of the fishing skill, though. Well, rewriting the entire fishing skill around it is not something that we were planning to do.
I assume that was the context of the question.
Potentially.
All right. Well, that is going to conclude our raids question for the stream. We have one question remaining. That is a suggestion that actually came up quite a while back, but Mod Ghost brought it up saying he wouldn't mind making this if the community does want it. So we've got an image for you guys, and I think we're going to throw a straw poll in the chat. And that is the recolor of the Rock Golem pet. So originally our answer to this was not so friendly. However, after seeing the positivity that came with the rune crafting pet and all its different variations, I think the community might be more inclined to like this idea. We'll find out. Have your say. Obviously, we're not absolutely going to add it into game whether you guys like it or not. Just give us a general idea of what you
One
think
thing
of
with
this.
the rune crafting bet is that you can change it. So it's the colour of the one you get it from originally, but whenever you craft at a different altar with it out, it changes to that altar.
Right.
Would we want the same with the mining pet, or would we want it to stay the colour of the one you got it from?
With the rune crafting one, there's been a fair bit of support for being able to lock it to the colour it's currently in and stay that way, because
Yeah.
if you've gone and taken it to a death altar just to show you can, you might like that.
Wouldn't be too bad to do. I don't know where you would put the toggle.
Wow, 92%.
Possibly talking to it would do it.
So basically, if you were mining, say, gold, you would get a golden rock golem. So yeah, the question really is, should they be able to change it?
Well, they've had a lot of big functional kind of updates.
In terms
today,
of changing it.
Giving them a big cosmetic one is probably justifiable for the dev time.
Yeah.
I mean, my ghost wants to make it, so.
In terms
got
of
that covered.
changing, there is an issue. Like, if we let it change, it arguably might defeat a little bit of the point that it represents where you got it from. But essentially, it would be 7 different pets, or 6 different pets, if we made it so you get it. What if you happened to get the pet from a rock you didn't really want to get it from? You don't like the colour. You want the rune one, but you're not mining
And then
rune.
you can't get another one.
And then you can't get another one.
Yeah.
Like,
We can make it
we would
really
essentially have to make it
complicated.
so you could have 6 mining skill pets potentially, and you get one of all of them. I mean, changing I think is easier.
You get a rainbow
from that
golem.
viewpoint.
Look awesome.
You can make it really complicated and have each one trimmed, and the trim being the colour you first got it from. Then you can have about 50 of them. So you might as well
Matt,
put
go
a head in
away.
their hand.
Unless you want to code it.
Yeah, sure, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be a laugh.
What about the gem rocks? Ooh.
Well, they're purple. We like purple things.
And granite?
Yeah, you can have buttons down the middle.
That's,
then,
that's
couldn't
an
you?
issue.
Yeah.
Right.
Limestone. Someone going to go grind on limestone for it.
All right. I think there's obvious support for that, so I think we can justify throwing that in an in-game poll. You guys will be able to have your say in that in the near future-ish.
Yeah, we can have a clear out of a buttload of cosmetic things that have been floating around for a while, and we've done a lot of very functional updates. Having a cosmetics week poll might be a nice touch.
And graphics have been busy for months.
Well, we did
With
have
nothing
some
else.
raiding dungeons,
Yeah.
and it's
And that's every work. And
we did.
Well,
And Christmas.
today was pretty much entirely raids themed. Next week will be a bit more everything else themed, so we'll get back to those questions. Of course, there will probably be a lot of raids questions, but we'll also be showing the Deadman interview with the winner of the previous tournament, so look forward to that. That being said, raids is released. If you haven't given it a shot, go give it a shot. Everybody's
keep on
liking it.
sending your feedback in as well.
Indeed.
Aside from that, well, thank you for watching. We'll see you next week.
Okay, take care.